Hello, my name is Ben Herndon. Animals have been used throughout history in a variety of ways. They have been used for plowing fields, for powering mills, for transportation, and even for war. But since the Industrial Revolution, the question is, do they still have any relevance to the workforce? The answer is they actually do, and they can be used for the betterment of society through innovations on the farm. One of these innovations is symbiosis. Symbiosis is a biological term referring to a mutual arrangement between two or more species who help each other out. For instance, a cow and a pasture have a symbiotic relationship. The cow will produce manure for the plants in the pasture, which give the plants their life and nourishment. And the pasture will produce food for the cow, which will give it life and nourishment. This is a symbiotic relationship. And there are actually farms in the United States which use these symbiotic relationships to not only increase their productivity on the farm and to make it a better product, but also to actually decrease the work of the farmers and make the animals do most of the work. There's a farm up in Virginia operated by a man named Joel Saltine, and the farm's name is Polyface Farms. When the farm was first bought in the 1950s, it was desolate. It had been farmed by grain farmers from generation upon generation since the colonial times, and the land had just been abused. There were deep gullies on the farm, and it was desolate. Saltine and his father, and now his son, had been constantly improving the land through conservation programs and through the symbiotic relationships between the animals and the plants to make the farm better. And also into a commercial farm, which makes a hefty profit every year. One of these symbiotic relationships is between beef cattle and lambkins. The cattle will move from pasture to pasture, and after the cattle have been moved after 3 days, the lambkins will come on, get into the cow pies, and scratch through them, spreading the manure out onto a wider area of the pasture and evening out the fertilizer. They'll also eat up the fly larvae, which is the reason for why he moves them every 3 days, which is the time in which it takes the fly larvae to get big and juicy for the chickens to eat them. The chickens will also eat any parasitic worms that the cows would have, which destroys the worm cycle and makes the cows healthier. In addition to all this, chickens produce thousands of dollars worth of eggs every year, which is another product that the chickens create. Animals are extremely good at this by not only accomplishing a task, but also producing a product along with it. In addition to symbiosis on a farm, farms also have to have balance. In the case of the chickens coming behind the beef cattle, if the chickens ate all the fly larvae, then there won't be any flies to make more fly larvae in the next pack. On the African savanna, if the lions ate all the antelope, they won't have any food. Likewise, if, say, that a farmer is putting quail in his cornfield to eat the insects, and that's his symbiotic relationship. If he puts so many quail into the cornfield that they eat all the insects, then there's not going to be any insects, and the quail aren't going to have any food, and the farmer is going to have to take money out of his pocket and buy the quail food. Also, if the farmer has chickens and the insects destroy any of his crop, he can just feed the destroyed crop to his chickens. So even though he loses a part of his crop, the balance between the quail and the insects will produce something beneficial in that he can produce corn for his chickens, or what have you. This balanced symbiotic relationship can produce a ton of biodiversity, which is what ecologists measure land's health in. If there's a lot of biodiversity, then the land is healthy. When you have quail or chickens or guineas or some type of bird being your insecticide in your produce field, then some of the insects survive, and therefore that's keeping up the biodiversity. Also, some of the weeds are going to still survive, keeping up the biodiversity. But at the same time, the farmer is still maintaining balance in that he can still harvest a crop of corn, a crop of quail meat, a crop of chicken meat, or a crop of guinea meat, or eggs, quail, guinea, or chicken eggs. Also, at the same time, the animals are happy and healthy. A lot happier and healthy than most farm animals today in the farming industry. Most of the animals in the big farms today are packed into small quarters, and they have a ton of ammonia built up in those small quarters from all the manure. In both cattle feedlots and chicken houses, there is fecal dust which constantly destroys the respiratory systems of the animals. On the balanced symbiotic farm, those animals are happy and healthy. They're not in a cage. In Rainer Maria Rilke's poem, The Panther, and I quote, "His vision from the constantly passing bars has grown so weird that it cannot hold anything else. Only at times the curtain of the pupils lifts quietly, and Imogen enters in, rushes down through the tense, arrested muscles, plunges into the heart of his mind." The animals are not like this. They're happy and healthy out in the field or in the pasture, doing their own thing. And it is through doing their own thing that they're actually working and producing products, and not just being products as they are today. So there still is a future for work animals. And that future isn't just being the way they are, and farmers taking those uses and applying them to symbiotic relationships on the farm.